Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
It is now
afternoon.
5 p.m., August 4th, 2020. And I call to order the closed session meeting of the Victorville City Council, Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, Victorville Water District, and the City Housing Asset Successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Cox,
Here.
Councilmember Gomez,
Present.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
At this time, we have public comments. I don't know if we have anyone.
How can I get this louder? Is there a little button or something, right? Oh, wait. No. Yes. Okay, that's the loudest. Oh. Oh. It's already at 100. Okay. All right.
I don't see any public comment.
No one that wants to speak. Okay, very good. At this time, then, we will have declaration of closed session items by our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We have two items this evening. Both are existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1.
¿Cómo
First
ponerle más
case,
voz?
the parties listed on it, as well
Está
as the
bien
case
bajo.
number.
Lo voy a
set
apagar el
on the agenda.
abanico porque
Second one, the case name at this point is unspecified since disclosure may jeopardize the existing settlement negotiations. To the extent there's reportable action, we will report it at the conclusion of the closed session or the commencement of the 6 o'clock regular
I
session.
think that might work.
And that's all we have for closed session.
Yeah, that's all good. I'll start.
So we will recess at this time to close session, and a regular session will resume at 6 p.m.
Right, what's the A person there? Person waiting, okay. All right, Mayor, if I might, the first item, we're just waiting.
Very good. Good evening, everyone, again. It is now 6:01 p.m., August 4th, 2020. And I call to order the Victorville City Council meeting, Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, Victorville Water District, and the City Housing as a successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Cox,
Here.
Councilmember Gomez,
Present.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
not here, no. Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. At this time, can we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had two items this evening, both existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1. Item A, the case number and the case parties are set forth on the agenda. Item 2, the information was not disclosed as it would jeopardize settlement negotiations. There is reportable action only with respect to item A, the existing litigation that involves the Nebula Properties LLC. The council, on a vote of 3-2 with council members Ramirez and Gomez voting no, agreed to a settlement agreement with Nebula Properties LLC to basically settle the appeal of a illegal cannabis grow citation. And the terms of the agreement are that the property owner has agreed to pay a settlement amount of $68,300. That was from dollars up front, and then pay the remaining balance over 22 months. And again, this is settlement of a appeal of a cannabis grow citation. So the council voted 3-2 in favor of the settlement. That is all of the reportable action at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The invocation will be presented by Pastor Dane Davis of Impact Christian Church and the Pledge of Allegiance by Police Chief Rick Bassinger. Pastor Dane.
Thank you so much, Mayor Garcia. Thank you, Council. I have a great verse to share with you tonight, Isaiah 7, verse 4. King Ahaz was king of Israel at the time. His capital city of Jerusalem was surrounded by two enemy armies, and he was stressed out. This last 5 months has been extremely stressful for most of us with COVID and social unrest, and it being a very testy election year. And so the advice God gives to Ahaz is so good. In 4 points, he says, number 1, be careful. Number 2, he says, do not lose heart. Number 3, he says, don't be afraid. And then finally, he says, keep calm. So that's going to be the focus of my prayer for you tonight. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the grace that you give us, even during difficult and stressful times. And I thank you for this timeless advice that you gave to King Ahaz some 2,700 years ago that is just as relevant for us as leaders today. Lord, as we get stressed out at times, especially with this crazy year that we're experiencing, Lord, I pray that we would all be able to be careful. Lord, when we are stressed, it's a small step from being stressed to being stupid. So, Lord, I pray that we would be careful with the decisions we make and even careful with what comes out of our mouths. Lord, I pray that we would be able to keep calm in the midst of all the pandemonium around us. Be with our leaders, oh God, at the city council. Help them to be calm in the midst of these tumultuous times. Lord, I pray that they would not be afraid, be able to boldly stand and make the decisions that you've called them to make. And Lord, I pray that we would not lose heart. I can only imagine, Lord, that some on the council tonight are feeling a little bit discouraged. And I pray, oh God, that they would just persevere and press forward with the tasks at hand, because you've called them to do a great work for the city of Victorville, and you will help them complete that work. So be with them, oh Lord. Help us, oh God. to be careful. Help us to keep calm. Help us to not be afraid and to not lose heart. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 If you have a flag near you, please face the flag, right hand over your heart, and ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands,
and
nation under God, indivisible,
indivisible
and
with
justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
At this time, Madam Clerk, will you present the agenda and revisions to the agenda, please?
Due to safety concerns related to COVID, future council meetings virtually. We were forced to make this decision following behavior exhibited at our recent council workshop on June 24th, where members of the public refused to adhere to necessary safety protocols such as mandatory face coverings and proper social distancing. Medical experts from trusted public health agencies advise that these precautions are needed in public settings to reduce the risk of COVID-19. Also factored into the decision are recent spikes in COVID-19 cases and increasing hospitalizations in Victorville and San Bernardino County. In order to reduce the risk of exposure for our community members, city employees, and council members, we will hold our city council meetings virtually until further notice. Our virtual meetings are being conducted in accordance with the Brown Act and special provisions enacted during the coronavirus pandemic. We invite members of the public to actively participate in our meetings via Zoom. In order to offer public comment during tonight's meeting, use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, and then when instructed to, you will allot it up to 3 minutes. Should you conclude your comments prior to the expiration of the 3 minutes, you waive the rights to speak for any remaining amount of time on that item. For future meetings, you may also submit public comment via email. Your email must be received no later than 4 p.m. the day of our city council meeting. Our meetings are also being streamed on YouTube if you don't have the desire to participate in public comments. And we have no revisions, Mayor Garcia.
At this time, if there is an agenda item that may be of conflict of interest to any council member or board members, it should be identified at this time. So do we have any agenda items that may be a conflict of interest to any council member? I believe not. So we move on to public hearings. And our first, or our item number 1, a public hearing to consider adoption of resolution number 20-058, completing formation of the West Creek Park Maintenance Assessment. District Med 3, adopting the final engineer's report, confirming no majority protest exists following opening and tabulation of mail ballots and ordering levy of the assessments for fiscal year 2020-2021. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
Okay, the recommendation is to conduct the public hearing previously opened on July the 7th, 2020, and continued to August 4th, 2020. Take testimony, conclude the public hearing, and tabulate the assessment ballots. And if a majority protest does not exist, adopt resolution number 2058, completing the formation of West Creek Assessment District, and adopt the final engineer's report and ordering the levy of assessments for fiscal year 2021.
At this time, council members, if you have any questions, you have 3 minutes. I will start with Ms. Gomez.
Yes. So you're going to bear with me. This is my 3 minutes. De casualidad, ¿hay algunas resoluciones que puedan ser adoptadas y que podamos tener unas copias? Porque sabemos que el mantenimiento de la hierba en una residencia está ubicada en la ciudad de Victorville. Estos costos están afectando a muchos de nuestros fondos que la comunidad no tiene cuenta. Quisiera saber cómo está afectando esos fondos y a los residentes. So the question is, there's these resolutions that are being adopted right now. And I understand the maintenance of what's happening and these costs also affect our general fund and other funds. How are they affecting the Victorville Fund along with other accounts? And how are they also benefiting or affecting those residents nearby this MAD?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, the item before you, actually in the staff report, I think first speaks to a 5.9% general benefit that was identified in the city engineer's report as an amount that is not specific benefit to the actual subdivisions, the actual tract maps. And therefore, to answer the question as to how does it affect the city's funds, 5.9% of the operations and maintenance costs associated with these park facilities when they are built, and they're not built yet and they won't get built until actually residential homes start getting built in that area. But effectively that 5.9% share would have to be borne by the city's general fund as are all parks programs that aren't supported by a MAD. So that would be our obligation going forward, because that's been identified as a benefit to residents that aren't effectively going to be living or directly benefiting from this park system. To answer the question as to the properties surrounding this development, this does not get assessed directly on any property other than those that are in these tract maps. So if it's a property adjacent to the tracts, not within, they would not get directly affected on their property tax bills, as would those properties that are within these tract maps. And effectively, that would be an example of where our 5.9% share general fund would actually be paid to the benefit of those that aren't in the tract, such as perhaps neighboring properties.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any questions? No questions?
No questions.
Ms. Ramirez?
No.
Ms. Jones?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I have none. At this time, I open the public hearing. Do we have any persons that are wanting to speak on this item?
No, Mayor Garcia, we have no speakers on this item.
I close the public hearing at this time. Madam Clerk, can you begin the reading of the ballots, followed by the tabulation of the results to determine if there is a majority protest?
Okay, I'll start that now, Mayor Garcia. Okay, all the APN numbers start with 0455. So I'll do the last 5 numbers on each of these. It is a yes for 88-03.
Did you assist someone to open the envelopes?
Oh, let's see. Okay, there is not a vote on 882-04. No boxes were checked. It's a yes on 892-05. It's a yes on 882-05. A yes on 882-07. A yes on 892-03. Yes on 882-01. On, let's see, 892-01, no box was checked. So it's nothing. Okay. It's a yes on 892-02. Got 3 more to go. Okay. The yes on 882-02. Did I read them? Okay. It's a yes on 892-04. It's a yes on 053-91. We do not have a majority protest.
Thank you so very much. Therefore, I adopt, we adopt resolution number 20-058, completing the formation of the West Creek Park Assessment District. And number 2, adopt the final engineer's report and ordering the levy of assessments for fiscal year 2020-2021. At this time, I need a motion and a second on this item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Who did the second? I'm sorry, I didn't get who the second was. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll
Okay,
second
so I have
it.
a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments? Councilmember
Yes.
Cox?
No comments.
Councilmember Jones?
None, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes, son 5.9% de los costos y las asociaciones con el mantenimiento que no ha caído con el construimiento, que quiere decir no han hecho nada allí, pero los impactos del 5.9% salen de los fondos generales de la ciudad de Victorville. Las personas que viven alrededor de esta área no van a ser afectadas por sus biles, por asesoramiento, solamente las personas que en un futuro compren en estas tierras, ellos sí serán asesorados y obligados a pagar esos impuestos. The translation was an explanation for the community that didn't understand the explanation. Thank you.
Ms. Gomez? Ms. Gomez? Can you repeat the Spanish version of it? I didn't quite understand you.
Yeah, I can reread it, but it's 3 minutes and I only have probably a
I'm
minute left.
requesting for you to read it because I didn't understand you.
Sí, 5.9% de los costos y de las asociaciones del mantenimiento no han sido construido esta área, pero esto está afectando a los fondos generales de la ciudad de Victorville, el 5.9%. La área que está alrededor, que son los vecinos, no van a ser afectados con estos biles. Las personas que van a ser afectados por el asesoramiento en el futuro solo serán las personas que compran parte de esta tierra. Ellos serán obligados a pagar esos impuestos con el MAD.
Okay, now you need to do the English translation so that everybody can understand that.
Keith did the English translation. I'm taking the time for people that don't have. I can say this if I have enough time, if you're going to extend my time, but if you're not going to extend it, Why would I take the time?
I'm giving you the
You
time.
took the
Oh, okay.
time to,
Okay, all right, so I'll translate it. So 5.9% of the costs and the associations for these actual subdivisions are being affected by our general funds. As we all know, nothing has been built yet. However, that 5.9% comes out of the general fund. And as we usually do, we pay into the parks, and it's something that we naturally do. The neighboring associations outside of this mat are not being affected. The only people being affected by any fees or any increases would be only the area where there's future people who actually pay into this area.
Okay. The translation is not quite the same. The wording is not exactly the same, but the meaning, I assume, was the same. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any comments?
No comment.
And Mayor Garcia, any comments?
No, I have none.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor, and I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Cox,
Yes,
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to consent calendar. Consent calendar items 2 through 4 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be pulled for discussion.
I just had a comment on one of them. Item number 2.
Go ahead.
So again, ¿por qué estamos permitiendo que la organización High Point entre en un contrato para subdividir y no continuar otra forma de seguridad? ¿Cuáles son las consecuencias a la comunidad de las personas que pagan esos impuestos? I understand that we are being allowed to have these organization, which is called High Point, enter into a contract to be able to subdivide and to not continue any form of security. My question follows as, what are the consequences for our community as a whole when they're paying into these types of taxes? I know if you misunderstand my question, please ask me to repeat it, because I know the last verbiage could have been misinterpreted.
yes, please repeat it. I believe you said
so-
we enter into a contract that is not putting up security. That isn't what it says.
Yeah, so right here, if you look at the center of the lien agreement in lieu of other forms of security, my question is, why did we render a lieu of agreement instead of the other forms of securities, which are bonds, cash deposits, and letters? And the reason I asked that, because I want to understand how our tax-paying base is affected when we make such decisions as these, because these are things that are being developed within the community.
Well, I'm going to let somebody else answer. I know the answer, but I want staff to answer that so the public will know it.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, this item is actually substituting a security for property to accommodate a change in ownership of the property, and it's likely involving a sale from one party to the other. And when development occurs and there's a tentative tract being proposed, and it's actually moving from the tentative stage to the final stage where it actually gets recorded against property, so as to not require the conditioned public improvements immediately upon the recordation of map. Our code provides for the provision of securities to be posted, bonds being a form of security, but fairly recently we'd amended our code to allow for the actual usage of lien agreements. And so in the current owner's case and the proposed owner's case, they're both using lien agreements where effectively they're leaning against the property to ensure that when those properties are ready to actually be constructed upon, the public improvements then have to be built, and the lien serves as security for those public improvements. So I think to answer the question directly, it's slightly different than a bond, but it's serving the same purpose the lien agreement is as a security, and how it affects the taxpayers or the residents as far as taxes are concerned. If I understood that part correctly, it does not. This is specifically affecting private property and private ownership.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I add one item? The city council discussed the matter and agreed to the lien agreement procedures because when the market crashed a few years back, some of the bonding companies went broke. And as a result, the city was holding a bond that was then worthless. When the city has a lien on the property, it ensures the improvements are made because the city's acting on behalf of the property owners. And so the property owners all have a lien on the particular property, requiring the owner to comply with the requirements, or the city can actually foreclose on the property. So it's the best security there is. And thank the council for changing their policy to allow the lien in lieu of bonds.
Thank you, Jim.
And with that explanation, I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, second by Councilmember Jones. Any further comments?
Yes. Para las personas que están escuchando, quiero que sepan que en esto los códigos solamente permiten una variedad de formas para poner métodos de seguridad para un proceso que la ciudad vela por.
You
That's
have
it. Thank
the
you.
translation in English.
Oh, you want me to translate it for you?
Always.
Sure. I said the codes that are embedded here allow for a variety of forms of methods of security processes. And so this is something that the city is responsible for doing.
So Madam Mayor, just as a point, it's not typical to take a comment period per se on the consent agenda because it's understood that they're matters of routine nature and non-controversial.
Not necessarily true.
My only question here is, I'm just afraid that in translating, we may be given information that is not absolutely correct. I don't want to jeopardize anything and cause the city to be faced with a lawsuit at a later time. So we have to be careful with these translations, Ms. Gomez. Just a word of caution from the mayor, okay? All right, we move on to.
Okay, well, I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor, take a roll call vote. Councilmember Cox,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Yes,
Mayor Garcia.
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously.
now we move on to written communications. Item number 5, Measure I 5-year capital improvement plan revision for fiscal year 2019-2020. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Honorable City Council revise the Measure I 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2019-2020 to add the emergency repairs at La Mesa Road, Amethyst Road for a total Measure I expense of $316,401.75.
Members, if you have any questions, you have 3 minutes.
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
In reading under recommendations on page 231, it states that the total Measure I expenses are $316,401.75. If you drop down to the bottom, sixth line from the bottom at the total Measure I expense, it doesn't say the total expenses, it says the total Measure I, which leads me to believe that the expenses are greater than that, but only $316,401.75 is from Measure I. Is that correct? What is the total cost? And did it all come from Measure I? And then oddly worded, if that's true. Staff, question.
Councilmember Cox, in members of the council. My understanding of this item is despite the singular and the plural of the word expense and expenses, that in both cases, the 316,401.75 is speaking more so in the singular with respect to the cost, the direct costs associated with the emergency repair and repairing the storm drain and roadway damage that occurred earlier this year at Amethyst and La Mesa. And that because that emergency wasn't planned and because of the use of Measure I funds, we have to amend the Measure I plan. The Measure I plan actually covers a much larger expenditure, and our Stefan Longoria is here in our city engineer's absence. He might be better equipped to speak to what is the total expenses under the Measure I plan. But in this particular case, the staff report is really intended to speak to the singular expense of those emergency costs.
I understand that it speaks to Measure I and the expenses, but we also have Measure I for the streets. We also charge every month for flood drain, and this is a drain pipe. So how much was charged to the flood account?
My recollection, and Stefan can correct me if I'm wrong, is that in this particular emergency event, 100% of the costs were charged to Measure I.
Perfect. That answers the question. Thank you.
That is correct.
Ms. Ramirez, do you have any questions?
No,
Ms. Jones, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Gomez, do you have any questions?
Yes. Por favor, si nos puede dar una explicación de la cláusula que habla de los proyectos involucrados de la ciudad por el año 2019 al 2020, ¿qué fue lo que se anticipa y qué fue lo que se pidió? So looking at the second page 232, I'm asking staff, if you look at that last clause for the fiscal year 2019-2020, there is something that was requested and there was something that was anticipated. Would you please expand on that?
Well, I think it's exactly what's said in that particular paragraph is that the subject of Measure I and maybe more general sense, capital improvement projects altogether. There was a discussion a few council meetings ago where the council expressed desire to have more input in the CIP, the citywide CIP. And so that was put in that staff report to at least acknowledge that we haven't as staff forgotten that. We still intend to have that conversation with you. And by bringing this item forward and this item needing attention today, we didn't necessarily want you as the council to think that we had ignored or weren't attending to that previous desire. So that's just calling to attention that we're expecting at the next council meeting to have that conversation that you all requested as to having a better discussion about the CIP.
Thank you.
Do we have any speaker card? I mean, anyone that wants to speak, rather?
We have no speakers.
Thank you.
No speakers, Mayor Garcia.
Thank you. At this time, I need a motion and a second for item 5.
This is Jim Cox. I move recommendation of the staff.
I second it.
Have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. Any further comments? Councilmember Cox?
No comments.
Councilmember Jones?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes, hace unas juntas los regidores pidieron en lo general cosas para involucrar en los proyectos de la ciudad. Se puso esto como recordatorio para que los regidores no piensen que se le olvida a la administración ponerlo en la próxima cita.
Repeat it in English, please.
Yeah, so a couple of our council members asked to place stuff generically in terms of what it involves with the projects. And this item was placed as a reminder for the council not to think that the city administration had forgotten to add it, which will be added in the next agenda.
Mayor Protem Ramirez? Any
No.
comments?
Excuse me?
Did you have any comments?
No comment.
And Mayor Garcia?
None.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Mayor Protem Ramirez. All those in favor? Councilmember Cox?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Protem Ramirez?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item number 6. Initiate the annexation of track number 20274 into LMAD 6 and DFAD 1. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
That the Honorable City Council adopt a resolution number 20-062 and 20-063 to initiate proceedings to annex track number 20274 to LMAD 6 and DFAD 1 and direct the preparation of an engineer's report for each district.
Thank you. Council members, if you have any questions, you have 3 minutes. I'll start with Ms. Jones.
I have none. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Gomez?
Yes, el tópico de esta agenda es un anexo y también es una petición que la ciudad está recibiendo. Por favor, nos da una explicación. So if you noticed here, the topic of this matter for this agenda item is an annexation and a petition that was brought up to the city. Would you please expand on the explanation for the particular annexation and the petition and how it functions?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, yeah, I can explain that. And it's actually very similar to the process that we just completed in the public hearing item dealing with the West Creek Park MAD. MAD is a Maintenance Assessment District, but very similarly, LMAD in this case and DFAD in this case. LMAD stands for Landscape Maintenance Assessment District, and DFAD is the Drainage Facility Assessment District. Serving different purposes, but treated the same in terms of process to actually self-assess and form and pay into these districts. But here you have a tract of land or multiple tracts of land that as a part of their conditions of approval likely have conditions to build, in this case, landscaping that abuts public right of way. They also have drainage facilities that likely have been identified that require dedication to the city and ultimate maintenance. And so as to not burden the city with those costs, the development gets conditioned for those types of improvements and for those types of recurring maintenance responsibilities. And one of the common mechanisms, if they don't pursue the formation of their own homeowners association, is to participate in a district like this. So it usually starts with a petition, which is the stage that we're in right now, petitioned by the property owners where they're actually desirous of self-assessing for these particular purposes. And then we would have a subsequent meeting where we actually initiate the proceedings. We actually consider as a council initiating proceedings to form these formations. We also direct the city engineer to do an engineer's report so that there's a cost analysis to be done to determine what the assessment amounts would be for those particular districts. Then if we get past that stage, we typically authorize a notice of intent and then actually send out ballots. And it all concludes with a process similar to what we just concluded in item number 1, where you actually open the ballots, determine if there's a protest vote, and if no protest, then effectively the self-assessment goes forward. The self-assessment then gets recorded against the properties, and then the property owners within that particular area pay into the respective funds to pay for, in this particular case, landscaping and drainage-related improvements.
Thank you.
Mr. Cox, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Ms. Ramirez?
No.
And I have none. So at this time, I need a motion and a second for item number 6.
Madam Mayor, I move the recommendations of the staff, adopt resolutions number 20-062 and 20-063. That'll initiate these proceedings as described by the city manager.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. Any further comments? Councilmember Cox?
No comments.
Councilmember Jones?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes, la explicación de esta agenda es la siguiente. Los procesos son muy similares a una agenda que se acaba de aprobar. Estamos viendo que aunque los procesos son similares, tienen poco de distinción. Los costos pueden ser muy costosos para una ciudad, así que las peticiones como la que están aquí en esta agenda se las traen los propietarios para minimizar los costos. So the processes are similar to, the explanation for this item is similar as to one that we just recently approved. There are similar processes, but yet very distinct because cost may be very burdensome to the city. There are petitions such as the one you see here that come to the city.
You said the cost may be burdensome to the city?
Because costs may be burdensome, petitions such as this come to the city.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any comments?
No.
Mayor Garcia, any comments?
No, I have none.
Okay. So I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor, Councilmember Cox?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item number 7, Reclaim Water Reservoir Grant. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Honorable Water District Board of Directors adopt resolution number 20-013, which authorizes staff to apply for a Federal Bureau of Reclamation grant for the 1 million gallon reclaimed water reservoir project.
Council members, 3-minute time limit if you have questions. I will start with Mr. Cox.
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Jones,
No, thank you.
Ms. Ramirez,
No.
Ms. Gomez.
Yes, it's my understanding based on page 261 with the understanding of my reading that there are some issues with the improvement of reliability and water. Es mi entendimiento que con eso lo que está sucediendo en la página 261, que porque tenemos las palabras el agua y la cualidad y necesitamos que ser algo mejor, que hay un problema. Por favor, lo pueden explicar. Can you please explain? Because it's my understanding that there's may be an issue. We have to provide some kind of improvement.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, I wouldn't characterize it that way, that there's issues. Really what this project is intending to do is produce a higher supply of reclaimed water in a more efficient way than what we currently do with respect to our second supply source out at the airport. And so just to recap some of the history, out at the airport as a part of a larger capital improvement project that built the wastewater treatment facility, one of the outputs to that production operation or production process, I should say, is the creation of a commodity that we call reclaimed water. And so as a part of that project back in 2010, we built also a 1 million gallon above ground reservoir. That actually immediately replaced in primary service the water supply reservoir that had previously existed and still exists. Saying it differently, we have 2 reservoirs out at the airport. One is the 1 million gallon above ground that was built with the wastewater treatment plant, but we did have an older one, and it still exists today, which is a in-ground pond, and it was largely filled by reclaimed water from the Victor Valley Wastewater Reclamation Authority plant, pumped up the hill and eventually deposited into a giant pond, which then served as the primary reclaimed water source for the golf course when it was operational. We currently operate with 2 sources, but the primary being the above ground million-gallon tank. This in-ground tank, if used, does require a lot of maintenance related work. If we put it into use, we typically run into algae issues. We have to go in and actually remove any silting buildup that occurs. In fact, we have weeding issues that will also occur. And so really what this item before you is intended to do is, if we're successful in actually gaining or winning the grant would actually offset 50% of the cost of a second tank that really would be identical to the tank that's existing above ground currently, to where then we would have a second, more reliable, higher quality, less cost in terms of maintaining second source of reclaimed water, increasing our supply from 1 million gallons to 2 million gallons. Why we believe this is necessary is because the High Desert Power Project is our primary user of reclaimed water, and they use, when in operation, so much water that it doesn't give us excess capacity or excess supply, I should say, if there are additional users that come along that want reclaimed water. So this will provide us with greater flexibility to use more reclaimed water as an alternative to potable water if there are growth-related needs out at the airport.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone that wants to speak on item 7?
I'll check for you, Mayor Garcia. We have no hands up. So we have
Thank
no
you.
speakers.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second for item number 7.
Yes,
Councilmember
Madam Mayor, I
Gomez.
move the staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox. I'm sorry, Councilmember Jones, and a second by Councilmember Cox. Any further comments? Councilmember Cox,
No comments.
Councilmember Jones,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez.
Yes. Yo no caracterizaría esto como un problema, dice el señor Metzler, pero como para mejorar y tener mejores estructuras en el área del aeropuerto, se llama SCLA. Los usos serían para el mejoramiento de los tanques y el dinero sería para asistir en estas formas. I wouldn't characterize this, states Mr. Metzler, as an issue, but as an improvement for SCLA structures in that area. The uses would improve the tanks and the grants would assist in those costs.
It's after the fact, we're done.
Arlene, call me, call my name.
You're muted.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any comments?
No, Shirley.
Mayor Garcia, any comments?
I have none.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Cox. All those in favor, Councilmember Cox?
Before I vote, I have a question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interfere here, but my screen keeps saying Ramiro Rodriguez has raised his hand. And I don't know if that had to be done before or when the mayor calls on the public comment. But if we vote, then it won't make any difference what he has to say. And I was just curious.
It was not raised during,
Okay, thank you very much. I vote yes.
I'll take the vote. Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Potem Ramirez,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item number 8, resolution number 20-026. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville approving a request to become a party to Consolidated Fire Agencies ConFire Joint Powers Agreement. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Honorable City Council approve Resolution Number 20-026, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville approving a request to become a party to Consolidated Fire Agencies ConFire Joint Powers Agreement.
Thank you. At this time, council members, you have 2 minutes. Any questions? I will start with Ms. Gomez.
Yes. La pregunta es para la ciudad. ¿Tiene la ciudad algún miembro en ConFire o es la ciudad responsable por la membresía que vamos a traer? So I'm looking at ConFire JPA and it's I know that there's a membership, but I'm under the understanding that perhaps we're going to have a council sit in. And if we're not, would you please express the membership if it's only for the actual firefighters, or will we have a member sitting there to bring back reporting items?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, this item is a precursor to actually being a joint powers member. But presuming we move through the entire process to where the actual city council approves a JPA amendment and also the respective individual members of the current ConFire JPA approve a JPA amendment accepting us as a member, we then would have a seat on their board, if you will, and that would be effectively a role this council would play in terms of identifying who the elected member is going to be to their board. They also have subcommittees that do comprise the chiefs for technical purposes. It's not uncommon for JPAs to have technical advisory committees. This one does as well, and that one comprises the chiefs. They may have another committee that I'm not familiar with, but ultimately when we get through this process, presuming the council continues to want to be a member, then it would actually have a seat on the board, different from the relationship we currently have today.
The next question, la próxima pregunta, ¿será esta posición pagada como en otros comités en agencias externas? ¿Cuánto será el pago? Will this be a paid position as seen in other external agencies? If so, do we know the amount of benefit that city council member would receive?
It wouldn't be a paid position by us as the city. And I don't believe that the ConFire board pays its board members, but that's something I need to confirm unless the chief, who I believe is on the line, can confirm that now. If not, I can circle back with you and the rest of the council on that matter.
Thank you. No further questions.
Get back to her at a later time. Ms. Ramirez, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Cox?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Jones?
Yes, just one, thank you. Mr. Metzler, I'm presuming that we're now here talking about a JPA because we've already satisfied the requirements to join the JPA?
That is correct. When we actually had talked with ConFire initially, and for those that aren't familiar, ConFire is a JPA of a number of cities, including the county of San Bernardino, where their primary role is to provide dispatch services to fire agencies. And so when we had gone through the transitioning process, a dispatch relationship was critically important to a successful transition. We had actually expressed a desire back then to be a member of the JPA, but Confire did have a requirement that in terms of eligibility, you had at least have 1 year with them as a contract entity. We have served that eligibility requirement to date, being a contract agency for a little over a year now. So with that, this is kind of the next step to actually fulfilling what we had originally intended.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Now, do we have anyone that wants to speak on this item?
Yes, we have Romero Rodriguez. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. The first question was that a lot of people have called me, 3 people, Mr. Robert Belain, John Belain, Robert Rice, and Valentin Godina. When they log in to their smartphone, I'm logged into my computer, it's fine, but they're trying to log in to their smartphone, and it keeps asking them for a login number, for an admission number, admin number. So that's what it keeps doing. A meeting number ID every time, so they're not able. Those are just 3 people. So that's one of the questions I wanted to before. It's asking all the people on the phones and smartphones for a meeting ID number, so they're not being able to access the meeting as I am with my laptop. And to the following question to Confire is, I noticed that the cities that are grouped together with this organization are all down the hill, so they can pretty much help each other, just walk across the street. But the Victorville being so far away, 30, 50 miles away down the hill, when are we going to have to answer to them when they dispatch services from Victorville down the hill? We've been doing fine without joining, but is it going to a risk of us losing services up here while we're helping them down there through the contractors? I read through the Confire and everything else, and I just saw a group of boys, but I was wondering what actually benefits other than just being part of this great organization does it give the city of Victorville for the business down there? And please also fix the meeting ID number, because I wasn't able to find a meeting ID anywhere. And these are all people that have meetings through Zoom. And these are very important people and educated people that know how to get online, and it's not giving me any. Thank you. I'm done.
Was there anyone else?
Okay, we're checking to see if there's anyone else with their hand up. I don't see anyone, Mayor Garcia, no other speakers.
Madam Mayor, if I might, in realizing that there's no more speakers, I have gotten an answer. Deputy City Manager Smith actually shared with me that as it relates to the compensation question, we've confirmed with the bylaws of Confire, and they do not provide compensation to their board members. So between them not and us not, whoever would be our appointed rep at a later date would not receive additional compensation associated with that role.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Gomez?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I need a motion and a second for item number 8.
Cox, I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. Any further comments? Councilmember,
One comment.
no?
My understanding, Mr. Methra, is that Apple Valley is a member of Confire?
That is correct. They are,
Okay.
within the last
So
year.
we're
they've
not
been
the only
admitted
ones.
as a member.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Oh, No question, sorry. No
Councilmember
comments.
Gomez?
Yes, la ciudad no sería pagada, dice el señor Metzler, pero no sabemos si la mesa directiva paga a sus miembros que incluirán a un miembro de regidores cuando se incluya, pero traerá la respuesta en otro tiempo. La señora Smith dice que no habrá pago y se lo confirmó al señor Keith Mester, que él fue el que nos dijo que no habrá pago para una persona si es parte de esta directiva, de esta mesa. So Victorville doesn't pay for this seat on the board. And Mr. Mester stated that he wasn't aware or he didn't know that the board of directors paid its members, but would bring a response to the council at another time. Then he got a response by Mrs. Smith stating that no pay would be rendered to any council member. And this is what Keith repeated.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to make a point of order on this because this part of the agenda, we're actually responding to the motion before us, and it sounds as if on a number of occasions, Councilmember Gomez is attempting to reiterate the discussion in some form or fashion, but we've moved beyond that part in the course of this agenda item.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any comments?
No.
Mayor Garcia?
No.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor, Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item number 9, approval of annual service provider agreement for auto body repair services. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Honorable City Council award High Desert Auto Body Incorporated a general services provider standard service agreement for auto body repair services in an amount not to exceed $200,000.
Council members, 3-minute time limit for questions. Ms. Jones, do you have anything?
I don't. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Cox?
No questions.
Ms. Ramirez?
No questions.
Ms. Gomez?
Yes. Parece que un múltiple de vehículos policíacos recibieron reparaciones o van a recibir las reparaciones. ¿Nos das una explicación con los detalles y las fechas en qué pasó y cómo pasó estos detalles? La comunidad quisiera saber. I'm looking at multiple vehicles being funded by the general fund, and it looks like a lot of the police department vehicles are going to have these repairs. Would you give some type of detail and timelines as to what these incidents were, when they happened, and what the amount of the repair is to amount to the amount that I'm seeing on this agenda item?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that's a question that's asking for a lot of information that I don't have. I don't have particular incidents, but this type of contract more so is related to our recurring, just a recurring nature of business out in the field. And this contract largely serves auto body needs associated with vehicle or accidents. And the majority of them happen to be sheriff's units, and under our relationship with the county sheriff, we do have an agreement to actually maintain the vehicles. But with that also, as if there's body damage, which is not a specialty our maintenance crew has, then we do have to outsource that work. So when a vehicle, as an example, a police vehicle is involved in a traffic collision, typically we'll rely on a contract like this to satisfy that body work. So with that, I believe because the previous contract is coming to term, we'd actually solicited for services going forward over the next year, and we've come to find that the recommended low bidder is High Desert Auto Body.
Another question is, the contract that we have with this, is this a piggyback or is this a contract that we've generated as a new? En este contrato es algo nuevo, tenemos algo que estamos solamente agarrando por un año pasado y siguiendo la consistencia de este mismo contrato.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, as discussed on the very first sentence of the discussion paragraph, This is something that we initiated as a request for bid. So we actually used our website and e-bid board and directly mailed to 25 vendors the actual request for bids for this type of service. So it's something that we initiated and did not piggyback on another contract.
Thank you. Gracias.
Are you trying to see if we have anyone that wants to speak?
Madam Mayor, I actually do have a question now based on something that Councilmember Gomez said. May I?
Go ahead.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So, Mr. Metzler, I'm a little puzzled because when I read the discussion materials on the agenda, it said that the RFB, and I'm quoting, contained 4 scenarios of repair work to be done for different vehicles. So when I read scenario, I took it as they weren't necessarily actual circumstances or actual needs on those vehicles. Could you help me with that?
Yes, and I believe that that's better described, and I may ask for some help on this from Doug Matthews, our Public Works Director, but it looks like the scenarios that's being mentioned are outlined on page 358 and gives different examples of type of vehicle.
Right.
So in one particular scenario, it looks like they used a 2020 Ford Explorer V6 with certain dimensions. They used a 2018, another police vehicle with different dimensions. They used a Dodge Charger, which is another type of vehicle being used. It looks like they used the 2 or 3 different varieties of police enforcement vehicles. Plus, because not all of this is police, we unfortunately do have accidents with other city vehicles. It looks like they used a standard F-150 extended cab vehicle that we use in Public Works and Waters and some of our other field operations. So it looked like they used those different types of vehicles as a scenario to try to get some kind of comparable between this potential service providers.
Right, I understand that, but I'm looking to see if these were actual services that were required. Or if they were just, it was a created scenario.
Yeah, this is Doug Matthews, Director of Public Works and Water. They are typical of repairs that have been done on these types of vehicles. So they weren't actual repairs that were done, but similar to repairs we've had done in the past.
That's what I thought.
Just for comparison.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have anyone that wants to speak?
We have no speakers, Mayor Garcia.
Thank you. At this time, I need a motion and a second for item number 9.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that we take action in accordance with the recommendations set out on the agenda.
Thank you.
I second it.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. Any further comments? Councilmember Cox?
No comment.
Councilmember Jones?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes, se me respondió lo siguiente. Preguntas por muchos detalles que no tengo. Este contrato es de acuerdo a accidentes y los contratos que tenemos para el mantenimiento de los vehículos. Parece que tenemos múltiples vehículos de policías que están siendo reparados y están numerados en las hojas que ves detalladas siguiendo la 355. The response that was provided for me is you've asked for a lot of questions that I don't have a lot of the detailed responses, but the contracts that we have, we're responsible for the maintenance, and we have a contract with the county that are detailed in following pages 355. I failed to ask if these collision repairs were caused within the scope of work or after. Se me olvidó decirles, y con la pregunta, si esos choques fueron durante la transmisión de las horas de los trabajos o fueron después. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any further comments?
Yes, I would like to know how many vehicles are within the city of Victorville responding to law enforcement at the county level? How many are we responsible for in terms of repair?
I don't have that number handy. It would certainly be all those that are in our Schedule A. I could follow up with you specifically on that.
Okay, I would like very much to know. Thank you.
You know what? I'm sorry. You know, I could probably get a quicker answer. Is Chief Bessinger on the line? If Chief Bessinger's on the line, he likely knows his fleet count.
I do have the fleet count. You want the total vehicles that you have on the Schedule A, or are we talking about total collisions?
No, I'm
I would-
talking about the number of vehicles that we are responsible for if they were to be repaired by the city of Victorville.
Okay, yes, give me just 1 second. So as it's outlined, and you can find these numbers in the Schedule A on the contract, you have 35 marked police units, 75 or 7 marked that are considered what they call slick top, which does not have the lights on top. They're just in the car. You have 1 marked canine unit, 15 unmarked units, which can consist of detective vehicles, things like that. 3 command staff units, 7 pickup trucks, which are our sheriff service specialists drive those. We have 2 Ford Escapes, which are the citizens on patrol use those. So that we could do the math on that, but those are essentially the vehicles listed in the Schedule A that could ultimately be responsible for if they were involved in a traffic collision.
Is that the total number of vehicles that respond to the city of Victorville, or is that simply a portion of it?
No, those are all vehicles that may respond to, that's in the Schedule A that the city pays for. So they can respond to anything in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Garcia, do you have any comments?
No, I have none.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. All those in favor, Councilmember Cox,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item number 10. Councilmember Cox appointment to the Community Services Advisory Committee. The recommendation is any action is at the discretion of the City Council. Councilmember Cox, will you please present the item?
Yes, thank you very much. The staff notified me that there was a vacancy. Each council member may nominate an individual appointed by the council. And the staff followed the normal procedure of letting the public know and that anyone interested could submit a request, supposedly along with their bio. I went through those. I can't remember the exact number, but I believe I read and went through 8 of them, and I don't know how many more there were. First of all, I want to thank everyone who submitted their application. And I did read them. Upon completion of those, I interviewed Frances Lewis, extremely impressed with the information that she sent. And after talking with her at length, I was even more impressed. So I am pleased and honored to offer her as the member for the Community Services Advisory Committee. To offer her name.
Councilmembers, you have 3 minutes for questions. Ms. Jones?
I have no questions. I think Ms. Lewis did a wonderful job with her the information that she sent forward. It was very comprehensive. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Gomez?
Sí, ¿cuáles son los requisitos para aplicar por esta posición? Uno, la segunda es cuántas personas aplicaron. Dos, tres, ¿cuál es el proceso para esta oficina? So first, what were the requirements for the applicant to be able to apply to the specific position? Second, how many people applied to this position? And third, what are the requirements for this position?
I'd like to answer two parts of that. The individual is expected to be a citizen of Victorville. And like the city council, there are no requirements to be on the council. So if the public believes you have the qualifications, they elect you. In this particular instance, the sit on our committees, we submit, they submit their bio and their letter making the request to the staff who puts them together and forwards for the staff. And I based it absolutely, totally on no requirements to the city, but on the fact that here is an individual who is so well qualified that there's no question that I'm going to appoint anytime I have the opportunity, anyone and everyone with these kind of qualifications to positions with the city. It'll merely better the government and the individuals involved in the decision-making of the city. And I don't know the total number of people who applied. The staff will have to answer that.
I don't remember the number of people that were in the, that had the applications on the item, but it was provided to Councilmember Cox and to Gomez, Councilmember Gomez, for a selection for their appointee to the committee.
Thank you.
Ms. Ramirez, did you have any questions?
No, I just simply would like to say that an excellent choice.
And I'm very confident that the decision of Mr. Cox has to be excellent. I trust everything that he approves. I have no questions.
I have another question. Tengo otra pregunta.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm noticing that we brought Cox appointment. I went ahead and asked individuals myself to apply, but they're not here. Do I have to make a specific request to the city so that they enter my name and the people that I would like to appoint?
In the memo that was to you and Councilmember Cox, we asked that you notify us by, I believe it was July 23rd, who you want for your appointment and for the August 4th city council meeting. And we didn't hear from you.
So let me let publicly know staff. Anything that requires council input, I've always asked to call me. I've put it in email format. I've told individuals to do the same. Like many people, and like Kennedy has said, he was bombarded by a lot. And so when anything like this occurs, I've always requested, give me a phone call. In light of that, I did have an individual submit and put in before the 23rd. That biography was not submitted to me, so I didn't see it, but I know what she's about because I've interviewed her. But that's just entered into the record. Thank you for that explanation.
Do we have anyone that wants to speak on item 10?
We don't have any speaker cards. Any hands up? Wait a minute, let me get back on. We do not see any hands raised for this item to speak.
Thank you. So we do need a motion and a second to approve the appointment.
Yes,
Mayor,
Madam.
I'll make the motion to enter Francis Lewis's name to be appointed.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. Any further comments? Councilmember Cox?
No comments?
Councilmember Jones?
Yes, thank you briefly. Well, first of all, thank you to Mr. Cox for bringing Miss Lewis forward. And when I read her information that she sent, the letter that she sent to our city clerk, in the very first paragraph, she said, when she learned about this position, and I quote, "I immediately felt I had discovered my next opportunity to continue my joy of representing and giving back to my community." Wow. And then you read the rest of her information, and it's decades of solid service to our community in almost every area you can think of. And she's been an educator on top of that. So this is, in my view, the most excellent of picks. And I certainly will be voting in favor of Miss Lewis. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes, pregunté preguntas y las respuestas que me dieron a mis preguntas fueron las siguientes. La persona tiene que vivir en la ciudad de Victorville. Básicamente no hay requisitos de la ciudad que les ponen. Es opcional traer una biografía y un resumen. So basically the response that I garnered from the city, which was a response for Mr. Cox, was needs to be a citizen of Victorville. There is an option to bring in a bio and a resume for the rest of the council to read, and no standardized requirements that the council has put that must be met.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any comments?
No.
Mayor Garcia?
No, I'll just say thank you, Jim. This is an excellent selection. Welcome, Ms. Lewis.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor? Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
100% yes.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item number 11, Public Safety, Police Department Fiscal Year 20-21 Budget Clarification. The recommendation is this item is being presented as information only. No action is required.
Madam Mayor, I ask that this be put on the agenda. We have a council policy that if individuals speak to the council and the information is correct, and it's not that they may do it on purpose, it may be an honest mistake, a misunderstanding, whatever. It's not intended to be a negative comment toward the individuals who ever made the comment or shared the information. But the fact is that the public watches the council meetings. They pay particular attention to comments of the public. And in this instance, I'm not going to quote exactly, but it was an indication of a huge cost of $60 million, either for the public service of the sheriff. And then before anyone could respond, there was another speaker that said they had checked the budget and that was correct. Well, the council members, all the council members know that we have a $28 million police budget, $15 million fire department budget. That doesn't get you to 60 million, and we have a lot of other public safety issues. But when we talk about the funding for the public, Ms. Gomez has indicated many, many times transparency and the fact that we tell the public. And so I ask, we give the public the truth and the numbers. This is my request to simply show the public exactly what the numbers are. Serves no other purpose, just in case there was individuals walking away believing that we paid more than that. And there was, because I got a phone call at home, so how dare you spend 60 million for the police department? And when I explained it, they were a little upset, not at me, but I said it would be on the agenda, and they thanked me for that, because there needs to be clarification when misinformation, inadvertently, accidentally, or on purpose, are put out for the general public. I think we all have the obligation as public service clarify the record and provide the information that the public needs. You can't make a good decision if you don't have good information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I'll go ahead and take it.
Okay, we have a speaker, Ramiro Rodriguez. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Okay. You know, it's very easy to say whatever you want to say, whatever you want people to believe. The people are listening. There's 18 people listening on YouTube. That's it. Nobody comes to the meetings. And that's the narrative. You don't want people finding out what's going on. You say A, I say B, the people say C. Who's out there to actually verify those numbers? Even the accounting services that the city obtains, they just go by what the city shows them. There's no third party to verify it, to make sure that what actually we read is actually the truth. There's been a lot of discrepancies since 19. Can you hear me? See, that's it. You know, nobody can hear anybody. Sometimes the YouTube is all garbled, and that's what the meetings are. From the phone meetings to the Zoom meetings, the people can't log on. I mean, that's what you want. You say people call you. What people? There's 18 people on YouTube listening. That's it. Out of 122,000 people. That's what you want. You want nobody to be online and nothing. So whatever you guys numbers you guys throw at us, that's the number that you guys give to us to believe. That's all. So I think we need a little bit more of maybe a third party has nothing to do with the city to verify a lot of things going on right now. Just to make sure that way you either shut us up or we verify what we think. That's all. That's all. It's our city too. You know, we want to just ask questions. We want accountability. We want clarification. If you guys get offended right away when we say something that, oh, no, we say bribes, you guys say settlement. You know what? Tomato, tomato. It's just, that's how it's been run all the time. Who's listening right now? 15 people, 13 people on YouTube? That's it. And everybody that's here, that's participating, it's all either staff or workers of the city, that's it. Maybe 4 or 5 people that were able to log on. The rest of the people weren't able to. I tried to log on my phone, they wouldn't let me. Not everybody has laptops. Thank you. Hope you can hear me. That's it.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, there's no one else with their hand up. We have no other speakers, Mayor Garcia.
Do we have any council members that have any questions on this item? I'll start with Ms. Jones.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Metzler, on Schedule A on this agenda item, it talks about the law enforcement services contract for 2021. So, if we were to look back to the 1920 or the 18-19 fiscal year, that's gone through the audit process, right? So we have the auditors that look at all of the bills that we paid, and it matches up with what we've reported. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, and so the expectation would be, the city's never been called out, as it were, for reporting expenditures less than what they really were when it came to our audit. The auditors never had any kind of a finding like that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So do you believe that these numbers represented in this report are accurate?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Ramirez, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to know, okay, I noticed that originally it was 29 million, now it's 33 million. And I noticed that we have additional vehicles, or I'll say personnel. Why the increase? What has happened that it went up $4.5 million? Why?
I didn't understand her.
I didn't hear the last part. Were you saying why it went up 4.15?
I want to, well, it increased from 29 million to 33 million. My question is, why? What has been added on that is in great need, or that the personnel needs, or that the personnel has requested? What does that cover, that 4.5? Why? Why the additional money?
So that increase has not been incurred. That's identifying the amount that was in the public safety plan. And that was the recommended staffing level if, for example, the measure were to be approved. That's the recommended staffing level to enhance public safety. But that 4.15 has not been incurred. That's the estimated cost if we were to enhance to recommended levels if revenue was sufficient to be able to handle it. So the amount that we're actually incurring is the gross amount is the $29 million number.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Ms. Gomez?
Yes. So my first question, la primera pregunta es, ¿cómo va a afectar un incremento de impuestos? My first question, so you look at the general tax and use measure, how is that going to affect our budget in terms of increases if it were to pass?
The current estimate that we had shared with the council is that if that measure passes, the current estimate is about $15 million in the first full year to which it's collected.
Okay, and the second question is, segunda pregunta es, ¿cuál es la explicación que tenemos que poner más dinero a los parques, a las librerías y a los servicios recreacionales, de recreación? So you look at the last paragraph on page 409. Would you tell me an explanation about putting more money into library, parks, recs? How would that be far less in the budget?
How would that be what?
How would that be in terms of the budget? And so right here, let me read what it says. It says, noted by the audience participation, services such as the ones enumerated here receive far less in terms of the budget. So I'm asking the question, how is it less that it is receiving by that statement being made there?
Which page is she on?
Page 409, the last sentence of the paragraph on background.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the point there being made is drawing comparison to the question you just asked with respect to the revenue and the estimate being currently $15 million in the first year of collection. And if you were to compare what our recommended enhancement level for just police alone being the 4.15, what the point that's trying to be made there is when you also consider the other recommendations, the recommendations to fire and medical services, the recommendations of that public safety plan that were for code enforcement and animal control, the point of that is in the early years, there's actually a differential to where you have additional revenues estimated to be generated from that measure that can be used for some of those essential public services, those quality of life services, such as libraries, such as recreational programs, recreational facilities. You have flexibility, I think, is the point that's trying to be made there, to where you have some discretionary spending ability if the measure goes through.
The next question. So I'm on page 410. La pregunta siguiente es en la página 410. ¿Cuál es la recomendación para pasar un plan? ¿Y cuál es la relación con los impuestos? So the recommendation was made to provide a tiered approach. what is the effect with a tiered approach and coming up with a general tax being passed?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's drawn back to the actual public safety plan. So if you'll recall, having reviewed that document, even though it was very voluminous, when we did speak to the public safety, the police aspect of the public safety plan, there were 3 different tiers of beat patterns that were being considered as a part of the analysis. Currently, we operate in 6 geographic areas or beats, as the police call them, in the city. And so the plan studied service levels by creating smaller geographic areas or smaller beats, which would require the increase in the number of beats. So the tiered approach is speaking to what we studied, which was an 8-beat system, a 9-beat system, and a 10-beat system. The 10-beat system being the most desirous, but one of as a part of the recommendation, considering the totality of what it was we were trying to consider as a part of the overall public safety plan, and considering the cash flow over the course of the next 5 and 10 years, it was determined what was most affordable from a cash flow perspective was the 8-beat system.
Okay, my final question. Well, I have another question, but if you look at the 6 pattern to an 8 pattern beat, I'm looking at, I thought we had 5 beats covered, not 6, but I guess we're going to 6. So what is it officially? Is it 5, which is what I thought it was? Is it 6? Is it going to 6? Is it going to 8? La pregunta siguiente es, tenemos 8 áreas que cubren los policías. Una explicación de que si tenemos 5, son 6 o son 8.
We currently operate a 6-beat system, and we've operated a 6-beat system for quite some time.
Okay, and then my final question y la última pregunta. I'm looking at page 412, la página 412. I'm sorry, it's page 414. Disculpe, es 414. So page 414 says proposed, not final. What does that mean? Is this because the measure hasn't been approached, or is it because we're looking at that if it were to happen? And hold on, I'm gonna say this in Spanish. No entiendo por qué la proposición no ha sido finalizada. Propongo que quizás los impuestos estamos esperando y después. So I'm not sure if not proposed means waiting on the tax or just bringing it up to speed.
You have 15 seconds.
The primary purpose for that item being there was to hold true that number that's actually in the staff report. So you talk about the proposed 8-beat system and the 33.2 number. That's really there largely intended to serve as backup and support to make true the number that's used in the staff report, which does reconcile with the 33.2 that's in the 3rd paragraph of page 410. But also, it is in fact just what it's called. It's proposed, and this was actually an example of what was used in the public safety plan. So when we went through the analysis to decide staffing levels, whether it's an 8-beat system, 9-beat system, or 10-beat system, and in fact, we created proposed Schedule A's, just like the one you see here, for a 9-beat system and a 10-beat system. We had to do that to get an estimate of cost. So that's exactly what this is. And it's today, based upon today's cost, if we were to move forward and go to an 8-beat system, and if we had the funds to be able to support that, this $33.2 million number in today's dollars is what it would look like. But it's just strictly proposed for illustration purposes and to support the math that's discussed in the discussion section of the staff report.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have
Mr.
comments.
Koch, yes, do you have anything?
Well, yes, I do. This was just submitted so that, as Mr. Romero indicated, they want the truth, and that's what this is. But he tried to imply that staff gives the auditor the information staff wants to give them. And this is what we always have to correct. Nothing could be further from the truth. The way that false information gets out is from people making comments that are totally untrue. An audit is required by law. The auditors come in totally independent. That's why it's called an independent auditor, and they are CPAs. If staff even attempted to guide the audit in a particular way, or gave them information they wanted them to use, or withheld information, they would immediately resign, walk out of the building, and there would be a grand jury investigation. The CPAs choose what to audit. They tie things together from all the expenditures and the income, and they choose what to audit. There are guidelines of things that they will always look at, but they make the request and staff has to provide them. Just the opposite of what Mr. Romero has tried to imply. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for that clarification, which is very correct. This item was just for information, so there is no action required, correct?
No action, just for clarification.
So now we move on to item 12. Runway 17/35, reconstruction phase 3, project number CC 20-065. Reject all bids and resolicit. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Honorable Board of Directors reject all bids received and opened for runway 17-35 reconstruction project CC 20-065, the project, and direct staff to resolicit the project.
Thank you. Council members, you have 3 minutes. If you have any questions, we'll start with Ms. Gomez.
Ya, esta construcción tiene tiempo, pero ¿cuánto tiempo tenemos de la fecha del comienzo al final de este proyecto número 3 y por qué se va a posponer? Y por qué no podemos seguir como en otras áreas hemos seguido y hemos corregido inmediatamente a los costos, a menos de que sean monetarios. Sabemos que no podemos hacer algo. So regarding the reconstruction, we know that there's a time that it started and a time that it ended. I'm not sure when it started. It's been probably elongated. However, this project being in phase 3, if you would be able to explain why we have to stop it. There's been many times that we have been able to, when I'm going to say Jimmy the project for its continuance, and we have done in the past, unless it's for monetary reasons. I understand why that would be something that we want to correct in the filing of this type of approval or disapproval.
Question?
Yeah, that was a question. So the date of start, so I want to know a elongated period of time because this is a very long project. And then I was asking, why can't we modify as we usually do? If it's because of monetary reasons, if you could express it. I'm on item 12, the runway.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is an item that's really intended to reject bids. Now, this is part of a large project, and it's a multi-phase project, and it does affect or involve our north-south runway out at SCLA. That's our primary runway. And as it currently stands, it's our only runway that's open because of the demand for parking. We've actually closed down runway 321. But, you know, probably the best person to speak about perhaps the amount of the runway, because it's a 15,000-foot runway, what we've completed thus far in phases 1 and 2, and then, of course, what we're trying to complete in phase 3. Eric Ray is our airport director. He can speak to that, and then, of course, summarize precisely why we're recommending the rejection of bids here.
Mr. Metzler, he's indicating he's trying to be unmuted, but he's having a difficult time unmuting.
Okay, we're being told that he doesn't have audio. He only has video. Yeah, okay. So I'll try to do my best. So one of the things that we've been attempting to do over the years, and it's been the last couple of years that we've worked on phases 1 and 2. Phases 1 and 2 was basically a reconstruction of about 8,000 feet of the 15,000-foot runway. Ultimately, ultimately 13,000 of the 15,000 feet have to be reconstructed, and a large part of why it has to be reconstructed is we've had significant pavement failures underneath the runway, and in a lot of cases we've ran into structural issues. We've even run into issues to where we've identified just poor construction undertaken by the military when it was originally built. In fact, we found cases where some of that runway was literally paved over native soil without any aggregate base or structural support. So it's been a long-term project. And I think the total project is estimated in the 25 to 30 million price range. And so that being said, because we rely heavily upon AIP money from the FAA, it's a grant fund. They've never had that type of discretionary money to allocate to an airport like ours, a 25 to 30 million all in 1 year. So we've worked with them on a phased approach to get what we could as available from the AIP fund. And so we've completed about 8,000 lineal feet of runway. And this project was intended to construct, probably in the staff report, I just don't have it handy, an additional segment approaching the intersection of the runway. But long story short with this item, and the reason why we're recommending the rejection of bids, is that the engineer's estimate, which also serves as the amount of funding that we were able to secure from the FAA, was $11.6 million. The bids came in dramatically greater than the amount that's being made available to us by the FAA. So with that being said, there isn't sufficient funding. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board from the bidding perspective and perhaps restructure the bid documents in a way where we have the capability to do deductive items based upon the bid amounts if they don't come back more competitive.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones, do you have any questions?
I did, but Mr. Metzler just asked the very question or anticipated the very question I was going to ask. So I'm good. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That's why I like to be the last one, because all my questions.
Gotcha.
Mr. Cox,
No questions at all. Thank you.
Ms. Ramirez,
No questions.
and I have none.
We're going to check for speakers. Give it a minute. Mayor Garcia, I don't see any hands raised to speak.
Thank you very much. At this time, I do need a motion and a second to approve item number 12.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the council take action in accordance with the recommendations set out on the agenda.
Councilmember Gomez goes ahead and makes that second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Gomez. Any further comments? Councilmember Cox?
No comment.
Councilmember Jones?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes. Es un proyecto con múltiples fases y en los últimos años se han reconstruido muchos pies de este pavimento por no tener base maciza. La agencia FAA tiene los números que los constructores no salieron a la igualdad y por esa forma tienen que poner las puestas de nuevo para medir lo mismo que está diciendo la agencia FAA. So this is a project with multiple phases. In the last 1 and 2 phases, it has been reconstructed and the payment of many feet has been the case. It has been dilapidated, needing a lot of strength with the structure. So these bids have gone out for not meeting the FAA bidding requirements.
And Madam Mayor, I make the same point of order I did earlier. We're beyond this part in the agenda item. This is not the place to recap the purpose of the agenda item. This is the place where we discuss the actual motion, which was the rejection of the bids. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I'm also gonna make a point of order. As my comments come in, I can make my comments whatever I'd like, and they're structured based on the topics, and I will continue to do so in the language that I desire during my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, do you have any comments?
No.
Mayor Garcia? No. I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, a second by Councilmember Gomez. All those in favor, Councilmember Cox?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez?
Aye.
Mayor Garcia?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item 13. Discussion and possible action on establishing an advisory committee for the City of Victorville Public Safety and Essential Municipal Services General Transaction and Use Tax Measure. Recommendation, any action is at the discretion of the City Council. Council members, do you have any questions on this item? Now, is this an item that Jim is to present or? Yes. Jim, would you like to present this item?
Well, thank you very much. The staff report is exactly what the request, it sums up the request. It also gives information in regard to what other agencies have done, particularly Norco, Barstow, Monrovia. I believe and believed at the time that we agreed to go to a vote that the public must have the assurance of exactly what the request is, what the money does, where it's going to go, and that a future council cannot just arbitrarily decide to take the revenue from the sales tax and spend it on something that's not contemplated or not told to the public. Transparency, trust, extremely important. And I jokingly said, I trust our current council. I'm not sure about future councils. I don't know who they're going to be. But one of the things that the public has to do is to trust what the money is going to be used for. And I think a good way to ensure that is to have a committee that will kind of be a buffer between the city council and the public that will report on the income, report on the expenditures, to ensure the public that the city council is carrying out the will of the public and doing exactly what they pledged to do. That's the purpose of it. I think it's important. I see the other committees also have, other cities have felt the same way. They have appointed those committees. And I believe that in order to assure the public that we are sincere, that this committee should be put together. And even though not formalized, we have to agree, have the framework, and even have the names of the individuals that sit on the committee prior to the date of the election. I realize November is some time away and we may have some time to do this, but it'll be amazing how fast that will go. And in the meantime, people are going to be making up their mind to be for or against, and they have a greater chance of being for it if they know that there is an independent agency they can talk to, attend the meetings, going to be reporting quarterly, semi-annually or something to the public. So I think it's insurance. I think it's insurance that is good for the public. And actually, I think it's good for the city council, knowing that there's a separate body looking at this very important issue. That's the purpose of it. And staff, you did a good job on the write-up. And so there it is. Thank you.
Council members, if you have any questions, you have 3 minutes. I'll start with Ms. Ramirez.
No, I think that what Mr. Cox has said is correct. We do have to have an advisory group and we have to keep it where it's transparent. And we need to have the residents of the city of Victorville acknowledge the fact that we're here for them and that whatever is to be done will be determined by them, not by us. We simply will be able to approve with the financial aspect of it. So I agree totally. We need an advisory group and I'm very much in favor of it.
Ms. Jones?
Yes, thank you. I concur with everything that Councilmember Cox and Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez just said. I do have a question from Mr. Metzler on the samples that are posted on the agenda from the various cities on how they handled this type of issue. I have presumed, but I suppose I shouldn't, that they were all standing committees in an advisory capacity only.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. That's what made sense to me. I just wanted to double check. I have to say, I like I was a little reluctant at first on how Norco handled this matter, but the more I look at it, the more I think it may very well achieve for us what is going to be most palatable for our community, most acceptable in terms of transparency and so forth. So I certainly am game for whatever the council's wishes are on this as to what the committee should look like. Of course, it should be a standing committee. I kind of like the idea of a third party consultant taking a look, or this group taking a look and always being abreast of all of the how the monies are being spent and if they're being spent in accordance with what the intent was. So I guess I'm looking for Councilmember Cox to lead us forward as to if there's anything that he wants to accomplish tonight by way of this agenda item.
Thank you. Ms. Gomez?
Yes. So my first question, mi primera pregunta es, si hubieran costos en anticipación, ¿qué costos aproximadamente serían? Administrativos, laborales, etc. So if costs were to be incurred, what would be the approximation of the cost? For example, labor costs, employee, administrative, etc.
Can I answer that before staff tries? At this point in time, we don't know the number of people that are going to be, first of all, let's assume just for a second, for discussion purposes, that the city council agrees to have the committee. Now we have to determine how many people are going to be on the committee. That's a council decision. Who's going to choose those? What is the makeup going to be? Can staff obtain copies of from those cities that have established commissions or committees and how those committees were established? How long do they serve? Are they going to be rotating? Are they going to serve every 2 years? Are they going to have reorganizations? This has to be worked out, but it can be done very shortly if staff will do some research. It's not going to be very costly to get the information, and then it has to be put together in a readable form, distributed to the city council with the city attorney's input in regard to whether or not it's done by resolution or a minute order. I prefer the resolution. I think that's more permanent and assures the public that it's going to be done. And the purpose was that if the council would agree on these things, we immediately move forward, staff put the information together, and then there will be questions from individual council members, but we don't want to wait until October, November to do this. We should do it as soon as possible. And so my request would be, if the council is agreeable, staff put it together and put it on the next agenda. At least it's an update if it's not complete, but with the idea of completing it as soon as possible. Then the city council can make the determinations. Are we going to appoint the committees the same as we do our current committees that we have, standing committees, et cetera? As you see from looking at what the other cities have done, there are different ways to do it. And some can be direct appointment of the members. I believe that we have good members on all the committees that come about the way we currently appoint, and that's that each of the council members put up a name. The whole council must vote, possibly the same thing here, but that's a framework we don't have. And I'd rather not get into the details, but if we can avoid it until we get this put together, and then when we have the suggestion before the city council, how the other cities do it, examples of actual documents, then I think all those questions, and they're all good questions, but they can be answered at that time. That's kind of off the top of my head. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jim. That's excellent.
Okay, so my second question is, how can we ensure that the wishes of this current council would respect any future decisions and no change of ideas would occur? So in Spanish, it's ¿cómo nos aseguraríamos que el deseo de este concejal no sería respetado y en el futuro no sería cambiado por una idea muy diferente?
Is that a question to me?
These are my questions for this
Yeah,
item.
well, this is, sure, the public wants assurance that what we say we're going to do, and the committee is going to be responsible to the city council. That's how we're assured. And the city council is responsible to the public, and that's how they're assured. And when the council goes back on its word, that's when the public gets new council people. That's the best assurance we can possibly have.
And then third, how can this council enter into a contract with a community legally to establish what I would call phase one, to gain an imagined structure to win the trust of the people? And in Spanish it says, ¿cómo puede el consejo entrar en un contrato con el pueblo para establecer lo que sería una confianza o algo imaginario que estamos nosotros proponiendo en esta área?
Could you repeat the English question first?
Yeah, how can this council enter into a contract with the community legally to establish a phase one of an imagined committee phase?
Well, I suppose the same way that the city council entered into legally to appoint a community advisory council, the planning commission, there's all kinds of, we have adoptions, we have resolutions, we have ordinances, we have agreements. This here is going to be a standing committee that's going to have some oversight, but they an advisory committee to the council. They will make recommendations to the council. A part of putting this together can be a written report, a requirement. A portion of it can be a separate audit, for example, in regard to the proceeds that come from the sales tax. There are several ways to provide the public the assurance that the council will expend the money as they have said they would, or as recommended by the standing committee.
Thank you. No further questions.
Do we have anyone that wants to speak on item 13?
We have Ramiro Rodriguez. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? Hello,
Ramiro?
can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I listen in all the meetings. I take notes in all the meetings. And the last time when I said how this money was going to be spent, Mr. Jim Cox really quick came up with an answer of making a committee. But one of the things he said, struck me very strongly, because all they're going to be on there, they're going to be listening, but they will have no legal power, nothing. They can scold all they want. They can jump up and down in their chairs, but they will have no legal recourse for anything. They can recommend, they can yell, scream, but that's about it. And everything in the city does, you don't like certain things. We yell, scream, and everything, but it still gets done by what the city wants, what the city people vote for. Always. Everything from what we don't agree with. We were talking about those school resource officers. The $1.some million that we're paying for school resource officers. We don't need them, but we got them anyway. We complained about them. Nothing happened. We're just going to be yelling in the wind. That's all it is. What are these people going to do? You can just elect 3 or 5 Kavanaugh just to be your little friends. We saw what happened with La Junta. You kicked Blanca out of that committee because you guys wanted to go settle it yourselves without hearing all the the details. So that's what happens. So you make a committee of 5, 10, 50 people. Look right now, you have 17 people on YouTube. I'm probably the only one from the city online. Everybody else is from staff. But that's what you want to do. You don't want anybody listening. So it's campaign year. You can say all these pretty things, whether this committee happens or not. And let me tell you one thing. When I read that accounting report, the accounting department says on the bottom, this is our recommendation because this is what the city presented to us. So you can change the narrative all you want because you speak last, Mr. Cox. So you can deny everything that I say and contradict me because you have the last word. That's the power.
You have 30 seconds.
That's the power you have. But as of right now, I can see all 36 people there online, or 30 people online, 17 people watching. They're all staff members. There's nobody from the city listening. I don't think even nobody called you about the police department. That's my 2 cents. So good luck with that.
Okay, our next speaker is Proactive Citizen of Victorville.
Hello.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez just set up my whole thing for me. I am a citizen of Victorville, and I just would like to suggest, I think the committee is a great idea, but alongside the committee, maybe as many committee members, we could also have the citizens of different neighborhoods appoint a person to be their eyes and ears for the city, so to speak, of what's going on. The people don't trust that and excuse this term, but a puppet committee is going to work for them. It's pretty obvious just based on the feedback from Romero. So just a suggestion that maybe we could have a citizen appointed committee that matches your committee so that the citizens feel a little bit more confident that they're being advocated for. That's it.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up, but I do have an email that came in for public comment on this item. It's from Fred and Deanne Hudgens. We strongly support the establishment of an advisory committee for the city of Victorville, public safety and essential municipal services, general tax and use tax measure. Like other cities and commissions in the city, having each council member nominate and the council approve the members would allow representation from interested residents. A schedule of meetings for the city to report, including budget information when appropriate, also receive input from the community representatives should be included when setting up this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So at this time, I do need a motion and a second for item number 13.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the city council start the proceedings to establish an advisory committee for the city of Victorville's public safety and essential municipal services general transaction and use tax measure. The staff is to put together as much information as they possibly can from cities that have formed those committees, forward those to the city council members individually so council members can read those and provide an input back to the manager, and also the recommendations so that the staff can put that all together in a package and get it back to the council as soon as possible. I think this is something that we need to move fairly rapidly on. That's pretty open, but we don't know whether we're going to have 5 or 7 or 9. So the recommendation is specifically to establish the advisory committee authorizing staff to move forward immediately.
I second it.
Thank you.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. Any further comments or questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Cox,
No further comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes, briefly. So my understanding is that we're going to proceed with looking toward putting together a standing committee. And so standing committees then are necessarily subject to the Brown Act, which means that the meetings will be public. And the community members most certainly would be invited to attend and weigh in on what that committee is considering and what they're reviewing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Gomez, any further comments?
Yes, las preguntas, las respuestas de la 1 a 3 son las siguientes. La primera fue, no sabemos los números, pero sí tenemos un comité en el consejo, lo establece y cuánto tiempo sería parte del público, pero no sería muy costoso porque el abogado haría su leída a los papeles y luego el consejo su voto. La número 2 es esperamos lo mejor. La 3, la respuesta fue supongo que como otros comités hay muchas provisiones y tendrá otros grupos arriba como reportaje, auditos y mucho más. For the first question, there was 3 questions that I asked and these are the responses. The first one is we don't know the number, but if we form a committee, council would vote, then determine the time that the public would be able to serve. And it wouldn't be costly because the city attorney would weigh in and then we'd have an ultimate vote of the city council. But number 2, we would hope it would be the best. Number 3 is I suppose like other committees that have provisions and the such, we would have oversight groups above with reportings, audits, and so much more.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
No comment.
Mayor Garcia.
None.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. All those in favor, Councilmember Cox,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Now we move on to public comments, which are 3 minutes. Members of the public are encouraged to speak during public comment period. Each person wishing to speak will be allotted 3 minutes. Should the speaker conclude their comments prior to the expiration of the 3 minutes, the speaker waives the rights to speak for any remaining amount of time. Do we have anyone that wants to speak on public comment?
Okay, I see we have Romero Rodriguez, and then after that, if we don't have any others, I do have some email comments. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, Romero, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, shout out to Proactive Citizen of Victorville. But let me tell you this, Proactive Citizen of Victorville. If we really had a council force that we could trust and rely on, we wouldn't have them. We wouldn't need a committee to oversee them. We would trust them. But check back years and years of La Junta, the SEC, the MARSA, Petco, and it goes on and on and on and on. Even the skate park. So if we really had a group that we believed in, we won't be fighting or arguing about how many people are going to be in the oversight committee to make sure that nobody dips their hands into the cookie jar and takes what's not supposed to. And you know what? There's people up there with 50 years experience, 30 years experience, 20 years experience. You know, it doesn't matter. You can have an oversight committee and that person is still going to spend $26,000 on the catered food. Well, what's the nonprofit do with $26,000? But you know what? Like they said, it's tax, it's still tax for everybody. You know, we need a complete overhaul. We need to see what's going on here. I've read about cities that have half our population. They have 600 to 700 people weighing in on their meetings. I believe now we have only 2. That's it. But you know what? They're going to tell you, oh, we do this for you. You know what? No. We're talking to people that have $7.5 million retirement funds to spend as they go by. We, as a working class citizen, what we're going to get in our 18 years of our retirement is $256,000. That's all we're going to cash in if we make anywhere between $1,200 and $1,500 a month. For these people, these high-end people with these $6,000, $7,000 a week jobs and $250,000, $350,000 a year jobs, secretaries making $15,000. They're going to make millions in their retirement, and we pay for it. So up goes the taxes, up goes the sales taxes. Kind of the worst term to raise the sales taxes. That's all the business owners. Have they gone
You
to
have
the
20
business
seconds?
No. I've gone to all the business owners. I've asked them. Nobody's reached out to them. So make your committee of 15. Why don't you make your committee of 122,000 people? Maybe that'll work. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any hands. Oh, actually, we do. Proactive Citizen of Victorville, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, Mr. Rodriguez, I understand the concerns, but we have to start somewhere. We can't just tear down the city and start from new. That just won't work. I do understand, though, the mistrust. But, you know, again, we're coming up on an election. People are going to be, you know, reelected, and we need to put the effort in there. This whole city deserves better on some level. You know, and I think that we can do better, but we all have to decide that we're going to do better. If we appoint some people from neighborhoods, if we divide Victorville into a few small sections, you know, we could canvass to get somebody in the neighborhood that everybody knows, that respects, you know, and would trust. And I think that's a beginning because we can't tear down the whole system, you know. We have to start somewhere. And I believe that you have the best interests of the people in your heart. So maybe, you know, this is an undertaking that everybody could do if the council decides that this is a good idea, to have a shadow committee of actual community members elected by the citizens of their neighborhood to also attend these meetings and, you know, break down, disseminate the information for all the people that are involved. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so I'll go ahead and read the comments that I do have from emails submitted. Okay, the first one is from Paul Marsh. It's time that we say enough about, it's time we say enough of the fires, destruction, and the degradation of our city. It doesn't matter where we place the blame. The fact is the residents of Victorville are tired of seeing our city run into the ground. Whether it is unmaintained residential properties or commercial properties, including their parking lots or illegal dumping, to name a few. I'm hoping that the city will try to incorporate some concentrated measures to solve the negative appearances and attitudes that institutes for our city. I understand that the city is trying to come up with solutions for our homeless population. With that said, just allowing the homeless to create encampments throughout the city isn't a solution. There has to be some restrictions that protect also the homeowners and businesses. The city providing porta potties for the homeless was a noble gesture on the city's part. We must ask though, is it worth keeping in place because they seem to be a cause for negative impacts to the city? There's drug use going on in them and there's multiple times that they have been burned. The cost is to the tax-paying residents of Victorville. To me, there's no reason at all why our Cultural Arts Center on 8th Street, the setting for our most recent fire, should be allowed to be converted into an encampment for the homeless. It doesn't matter that the nonprofits that cater to them are located in that area. That's a center that caters to our children and families. It needs to be respected as such. I hope that this measure passes in November because that will give remedy to a lot, I feel. In the meantime, though, I hope our city can move towards being more proactive to address these issues. This also means us residents of Victorville are taking part in solutions also by being proactive and not just expecting the city to do everything. Thank you. Okay, this is from Bruce Matthews. To whom it may concern, this email is in regard to the High Desert Center for the Performing Arts at 15615 8th Street, Victorville, California. As you may or may not know, some homeless people living in and around the outside of the building started a fire while attempting to cook themselves dinner on Saturday, August 1st. Though the outside facade of the building experienced damage in 2 places, the roof was ventilated to put out the fire. There was minimal damage to the inside and the rest of the exterior. In fact, the damage was so minimal that the set of the play, The Sunshine Boys, which was in progress at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, is still at the stage on stage intact. I realize that it will take some money to repair the building and that you may be considering raising it in lieu of paying to have it repaired. So I thought I would provide you with some reasons for making the expenditure to repair the building instead. First, the building itself is an historic past. It was the first USO in the high desert, serving returning veterans from World War II. We have continued the tradition of honoring them before each performance by proudly singing the national anthem. Next, there are more than 6 different theater companies of actors specializing in everything from musicals to burlesque and from comedy drama. I watched the older community, not so much older than me, come and enjoy the theatrical offerings, and I know that we give some sense to the joy of entertainment to them. I look forward to being able to visit this theater myself to watch the play be done here. Please don't take that joy, the entertainment away from us. Repair the theater. Sincerely, Bruce Matthews. Okay, this is from Deanne Hudgens. Another fire and another building burned by homeless. Who would ever think putting porta potties next to a city historical site would be a good idea, especially given the facts of how many buildings in Old Town have been burned and destroyed by homeless. Even if for whatever inconceivable reason that may have been, it was decided and it has to be done. Where is the security? Due to the lack of proper security by VVUHSD, Victorville has lost a major historical site. Why didn't the city learn a lesson? We drove through Barstow last week and didn't see one homeless person, shopping cart, or tent. Why? We also didn't see porta potties. We totally support the ballot initiative, but that is going to be done. But what is going to be done from now until this happens? How much more of our city is going to be damaged or destroyed? How many more shootings, murders, dead bodies, stolen cars, hit and run, or burglaries are we going to have to deal with? When a call was made to report a neighborhood problem and the homeowner was told the police were busy with street vendors, it again seems the city's priorities are awry. This is from Roger LaPlante. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Honorable Council and City staff. My name is Roger LaPlante, Victorville resident. Thank you for allowing us this First Amendment opportunity to give public comment. Victorville is a great place to live. Our community is strong, resilient, and diverse. Unfortunately, Victorville has been attacked by COVID-19. This virus has affected every single community on the planet, and it has taken a horrific toll on our civilization. COVID-19 has attacked our health, small businesses, and our bank accounts. Victorville is not immune to these issues. Large segments of our population have been laid off from their jobs, and it has created a devastating ripple effect through our city. A lost job often means a loss of healthcare, insurance, inability to make rent or mortgage payments, and an empty savings account. I realize that these issues are all connected, although these issues must be met on a federal and state level. There are some concrete steps the people of Victorville can take to rebuild our community. We currently have gyms and other businesses not abiding by state law. I am a U.S. Army veteran who served the Gulf War, and I hate to see any death. We have 155,000 dead Americans. Please wear your mask and be a a patriot. I currently live and I currently sit on the Victorville Homelessness Task Force, and we need systematic change in our government to help those in need most. Thank you all for your service to the city of Victorville. Okay. This is from Ruth Cordova. Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. This serves as a formal letter of justification to the upcoming public safety sales tax measure and give recognition, honor, and praise to the men and women of whom place their lives in the line every day to protect us all. In that light of praise, honor, and appreciation are the Victorville Police Department Gang Enforcement Unit for their extraordinary courage and bravery during the line of fire while placing their own very lives in line to protect our community in harm's way. Facts. On July 17, 2020, at approximately 5:20 p.m., 2 deputies from the Victorville Police Department's Gang Enforcement Division conducted a vehicle check at Hook Park, in which turned into a violent, brutal, heinous assault on our deputy sheriff. The deputy was severely, heinously, and brutally attacked in the face numerous times and choked by subjects while made in the malicious and deliberate intent to commit great bodily harm, injury, and or death upon our deputy sheriff during the lawful performance of his duties, maintaining the community safe from heinous acts of violence. The incident began with the mere contact of 3 males in a 1988 Toyota with expired registration tags at Hook Park. The Hook Park is commonly known of a place where families take their children for play. Deputies contacted the occupants and the front seat of the front seat passenger, later identified as, I don't know if I should say his name, should I? Okay. Michael David Jackson advised the deputy that he was on felony parole. The deputy smelled a strong odor of marijuana emitting from the vehicle. As Michael was being detained, the other deputy asked the backseat passenger, Tarek Rashad Howie, 27, a resident of Victorville, to exit the vehicle and provide his identification. Subject Tarek Howie immediately became combative, hostile, violent, and refused to comply. And the deputy, whereas a physical altercation occurred, at this time, the driver of the vehicle, 26-year-old Kevin Douglas Jackson, immediately exited the vehicle and began violently strangling and choking the deputy from behind with the malicious intent to commit great bodily harm, injury, or death upon the deputy. Subjects Tarek Howie and Kevin Jackson both proceeded to violently and brutally kick the deputy multiple times in the face, nearly disabling him in light of retrieving the deputy's protective weapons. The deputy was outmanned and rigorously fought to get the 2 suspects off him. The deputy fought hard to get back to his feet while struggling to maintain possession of his duty weapons and protect his life and safety. Subjects Tarek and Kevin began to run. Okay. So the next one I have is from Cora Smith. I'm an African-American woman with 4 small children. I know, and we know, and understand the societal issues facing our culture today. However, I will not contribute to chaotic behavior brought to this council and to our city as though our culture demands more than we ourselves are responsible for. I raise my children with respect and good morals, in which I was raised by my parents. I will not raise my children to agree or condone a city council person, Ms. Gomez, to wear a F.CKI t-shirt in schools, work, or any public place which offends others. Our values stem from the home and how we were raised. Obviously, this councilwoman, Ms. Gomez, had trouble in growing up and with no respect or values in her upbringing. That is perhaps why she went from foster home to foster home while bullying others as she now behaves as an adult. She was troubled as youth and now extremely troubled as a parent, mother, councilperson, and adult woman. For anyone to say, thank you for wearing that t-shirt, also was not brought up with good moral values and respect towards others. I will not raise my children to act and behave like Councilwoman Gomez and the two women, Crystal and Princess, and those that came creating chaos. Chaos is what pleases them. It is not a family-oriented, prosperous future for our city of Victorville or families to accept this behavior and as an example of our children, to our children. An apology is owed to this man, Mr. Paul Marsh, who intended good and not evil for our children, families, and our city, as I heard it. Those people are an example of how not to raise our children. I'm sorry. Ms. Smith, City of Victorville. And the last one is from Karima Abdul Kabar. My name is Kareem Abdul Kabar, and I support rent relief and eviction ban in the city, and an eviction ban in the city of Victorville. We can't allow more families to be homeless in this situation of COVID-19. The council must show that it values its citizens as much as it does our golf course. Add rent relief to the agenda. And that's all the public comments that were emails.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have any hands up? I don't see any further comments, Mayor Garcia.
Thank you. Now we will move on to reports from our city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I don't have anything to report at this time.
That's unusual. Now we move on to reports from council members. Actually, it should be discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. This is for discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. I will start with Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have nothing.
Ms. Gomez?
Yes, to add to the agenda, an appointment to the Community Services Advisory Committee, next agenda.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gomez, second by Councilmember Jones. Any comments or questions? Do I have a, so I'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
The second item is to add to the agenda, which is the next agenda, the legislative committee to see how we can repurpose or reimagine it because it's literally dead. Doesn't matter that we have appointments, we never use it.
Is there a second? The motion dies?
No further.
Ms. Ramirez, do you have anything to agendize?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Cox?
No. We've already agendized the items I was concerned earlier when we had the discussion, so thank you very much. I have nothing new.
Thank you, and I have none. Now we will move on to reports from council members, and this is a 3-minute time limit. I will start with Ms. Gomez.
Yes. Mira lo que tengo aquí. Mira esto también. Y puedes mirar eso. Si te imaginas lo que estoy promoviendo es obvio, es el Hágase Contar, es una campaña de participación en los Estados Unidos y el grupo NALEO, que son oficiales latinos electos, es una campaña que estamos haciendo para que nos hagamos contar. Es muy importante que el pueblo tome los 10 minutos o menos y busque el censo 2020.gov y se haga contar en este censo. ¿Por qué es importante? Porque proporciona dinero a la nutrición, a los programas escolares, a los niños que necesitan cuidado de niños, comidas y más fondos para las ciudades para que tengan asistencia. And I'm also going to bring quickly Matthew 25, 35 through 40, which says in the NIV version, it says, "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit." Then the righteous one will answer, "Lord, when did we see the hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? And when did we see the sick or in prison or visit you?" A lot of these speakers that are speaking of a categorical term of homelessness, which is being used in a pejorative manner. When is the last time that you sat down with your brother or sister who is now homeless and ate a meal to understand where they're coming from? When was the last time that you collaborated with this individual or these groups of individuals that we call homeless to support what their endeavors are, to give them the sense of value that you care for them? I'm tired of hearing about the homeless and how it's their fault. This is all hearsay unless you can prove it in a court of law and you can bring me the document evidencing that the homeless burnt that. I don't think we have the right to blame a category of people. It's like blaming me for wearing an F shirt and saying that it is my whatever. I don't think that's right and it's not fair, but luckily we have the constitutional right to assist and help us for whatever we need to say, but I'm here to defend the homeless. You don't like the homeless? I sit by their table and we eat together, okay? So you can't tell me that you've sat today with a homeless person and you gave them your support when you're talking ill about these individuals. So I don't appreciate those comments. So I'm here defending a lot of these people who actually
You have 20 seconds.
And the next thing that I want to say in Spanish, yes, I said, if you looked at this, it's make yourself count. This is a movement that we have in the United States. It's, if you search Census 2020, it takes about 10 minutes, make yourself count. This is important because it's more money to your city.
Ms. Ramirez, do you have anything?
No.
Mr. Cox?
I have nothing, thank you.
And I have nothing.
Do I get a chance?
Ms. Jones, you were the first one. I checked you
Oh,
out.
I did not hear you
Yeah.
at
Okay.
all. My apologies, may I?
Go ahead, yes.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, just a couple points of clarification, if I may. The reason that we have what might appear to some as so many staff members attending this Zoom meeting is because staff members are required to attend council meetings because they may be called upon for their particular expertise in helping the council fulfill their duties. And it's also my understanding that there's no limits as to how many people can participate in these Zoom meetings. So if there's just a few people on that, it's because there are just a few people on that. That there's no effort, I can assure you, by the city or any council members to keep our community from being able to view the meetings or be able to participate. That's one thing I know every one of our council members is very strong on. We truly do appreciate community involvement and strong participation. And I do want to take just a moment to congratulate Frances Lewis once again as our newest member to the Community Services Advisory Committee. I think she's going to be a strong asset to our city, and I'm glad she's on board. And I think it was the weekend before last, the Route 66 Museum had a fundraiser to try and keep their doors open. As we all know, that museum is integral to our community. They are the keepers of the history of the city, so to speak. And I'm so glad that there was a great turnout that day. And I look forward to, I'm hoping they got enough to keep their doors open. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Jim, did you have any reports?
No, I did not. Thank you very much.
And I don't have any myself. So that concludes our meeting. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay.